Hey everybody, JC here with another T&I toy review, and for today's review we're going to take a look at the new NECA Toys 7-inch Michael Keaton Batman movie figure. Now this figure is being released at Toys R Us stores both online and at their physical stores. The figure comes basically packaged on this card back that's very reminiscent of the old Toy Biz 5-inch Batman movie figure that was released back during when the movie first came out. You've got the Batman logo up at the top, you've got this gold kind of background on the card back, and then the figure's clearly displayed in the packaging. Now there is a sticker on the front that basically says the 25th anniversary edition Batman bundle, Batman Blu-ray with action figure. And then in little writing it says must purchase Blu-ray and action figure on the same receipt, and gives the Blu-ray UPC. So basically, the way this is supposed to work is that Toys R Us is supposed to be selling the Batman movie on Blu-ray, and to get the figure you have to buy the Blu-ray. Now that being said, I've got to note that I found this today at my local Toys R Us store. The figure was being sold where all the other NECA toy figures were being sold on that same aisle, and the Blu-ray was nowhere to be found. And I was able to purchase the figure without the Blu-ray. I don't know if that's going to be the same at all the stores. I've heard some people say that some stores are requiring that you do have to actually get the Blu-ray. There's really no reason not to get the Blu-ray. I was in a hurry. I didn't have time to find where the Blu-ray was. Again, it was not located with the actual figure, and I've already got the Batman Blu-ray, so I didn't bother with the Blu-ray, and they didn't make me buy it. But, you know, there's really no advantage of not getting the Blu-ray. It doesn't lower the price any, I don't think. Now, the figure at the store cost me $25. Online, the figure is apparently selling for $30, so I don't know why there's a $5 difference in price. So it may vary depending on the store, I don't know, but expect to pay between $20 and $25 for this figure. Now on the back of the packaging, we've got the Batman movie logo. We've got a scene of Batman standing there next to a tower on a rooftop. Now again, this is basically recreating the scene that was on the back of the original packaging for that 5-inch version. And then you've got a newspaper cutout, the Gotham Globe, and it says Batman defends Gotham street against crime, or streets against crime. It has like a little news article. And again, that's all very reminiscent of that old vintage 5-inch figure packaging that original figure came in. And then you've got the NECA logo and DC Comics and all that down underneath that. Okay, so let's get this figure open and take a look at what's inside. Look at the figure outside of the packaging, and NECA has done a great job with this 7-inch version of the figure. Now, if you own NECA's 18-inch Michael Keaton Batman figure, for what I can tell, it's basically the same sculpt. They've just shrunk it down to a 7-inch scale. Now, this figure was they first made the 7-inch figure for their 8-bit video game line. And the figure had some funky, purple and blue colors and everything to look like it did in that old vintage Batman movie video game. So they basically taken that same 7-inch sculpt and repainted it with the traditional, colors that we saw in the actual movie and everything. So the face sculpt, I think they've done a pretty good job of capturing Michael Keaton's look with this figure. Not quite as good as, like, say, the higher end Hot Toys figure, but pretty close. For a 7-inch scale figure, I think this is pretty dead on to Michael Keaton. I really like the sculpting on the mask and everything. The mask itself is kind of it's almost separate from the actual head. It's not removable or anything, but you can kind of like peel it back a little bit. They've used that soft kind of rubber vinyl type material. The ears, are made with the same thing, and they are kind of bendable. You might have some. Mine came out of the packaging pretty straight, but you want to be careful because it could be, they could get bent in the packaging, or you could even bend it, if you aren't careful. So I mean, it's not going to break off or anything, but it can get kind of bent or warped. So when you're looking at them in the package and everything, you might want to check for that. Make sure the ears are pretty straight. So the bat symbol, just like the costume in the movie, the bat symbol is attached to the actual mask. So when you turn the head, that symbol turns as well. And we've seen the same thing with like the Hot Toys figure and the 18-inch figure from NECA and everything. So that's not too uncommon with this particular costume. The bat symbol is just like we saw in the first movie with the extra points at the bottom. Now in my figure, the bat symbol looks like it's maybe a little off-centered in the yellow oval, but nothing too major. Detail is pretty good. He's got some nice sculpting on the chest, the armor pieces and everything. The belt is a separate piece. It's not removable, and it but it's glued on there, but it is an actual separate piece. Now it can, depending on how you're turning, there's some swivel at the waist and stuff. And so the belt can look a little, because it is a separate piece, can kind of like move a little bit, so it looks a little crooked at times, but nothing too major there. And the detail on the belt's nice sculpting and everything. Now one area of the figure where it does look a little off is here in the crotch section. Depending on how you pose the legs and stuff, you can see separation between the crotch and the leg where that ball joint is. And that can look a little funny. Not too major, and if you have, depending on how you pose him, it's not that noticeable at all. If you kind of have him looking back, up or back or something, it tends to be more noticeable. So the cape on the figure is a soft goods cloth material, and again some nice sculpting detail on the back. The cape is attached underneath basically the cowl and the head sculpt, so it can kind of move around, and you can kind of pose it in different positions there. So it's kind of away from, it's not covering the body, or you can kind of pull it forward, slide it kind of underneath those mask pieces, which are just a soft, again, that soft kind of rubber material. And so you can kind of have it cover more of the body. Now, another area where the figure, to me, looks a little bit off is on the feet. Basically, they've sculpted a separate piece on the boots to kind of cover the ankle joints. They did the same thing with their 18-inch version, and again, they've just used that kind of soft rubber material. The thing is depending on how you're moving the foot and stuff, that piece can kind of come away from the figure. And so it can look a little funny. It definitely looks like a separate piece as opposed to, part of the actual boot. The figure comes with a number of accessories. He comes with his grapple gun, and there's some nice detail there. You can see he's got the orange or the gold tip for the actual grapple. The rest of the gun is black, and then there's some silver highlights on it. The silver piece that attaches to his belt. Now, unlike with the 18-inch version where it actually came apart and you could attach it to his belt and everything, this is just one piece. The grapple gun does not come apart or anything, and it does not attach to his belt. But he does hold it in his right hand, which is basically been sculpted in a way to hold the grapple gun. And you just kind of slide it in there, and it fit the handle in between his fingers, and he does hold the gun pretty good. He also comes with a batarang, and again, pretty nice detailing with the sculpting and details for such a small accessory. It's got the silver tips on the bottom of the points, and of course it's shaped like a bat. Now, he does not hold this accessory very well, unfortunately. And he has two sets of hands. The hands that come with the figure are the one that's sculpted open to hold the batarang. And then he comes with a closed fist. And then he comes with another hand. You can basically just pop the hands off, and they're with those little pegs. And then so for his left hand, his alternate left hand, he has, it's still kind of a closed fist, but there's a hole in it. And this hand, I think, is supposed to be to hold the batarang. However, you just pop it in. However, that hole is pretty big, and so it does not really hold the batarang very well. You can kind of push it in there, but it just kind of fits in there loosely. So I've not really found a way to get him to hold the batarang nice and tight. So you can kind of set it in his hand, but if you start moving it around, it's going to probably fall out because it's just not, he just does not hold it securely in either of the hands. The other hand, again, is made more for the grapple gun. You can kind of set the batarang in there and kind of fit it between, on his fingers. But again, it's going to just kind of sit in there loosely and fall if you move the figure around a lot. The other hand he comes with is just another closed fist. So if you want to have two closed-fisted hands for like fighting or something, you can have that. Figure comes with pretty decent articulation. Now, a number of the articulated points are actually covered by the costume itself, so it does restrict some of the movement in some of the areas, similar to what the actual actor had to deal with in when he was wearing it for the movie. So the head can turn left and right, which is actually more than what the actor could do in the costume. However, again, when you turn the head, you're also going to turn the bat symbol, so it can look a little funny when you turn the head. He does not have much up and down movement at the head. A little bit down. He can look down a little bit, but not much in the way of up movement, because again, that mask, it kind of restricts the movement. It covers the joint, the neck joint, and kind of restricts some of that movement. Arms are attached at the shoulder with your standard ball hinge joints, so he can get his arm out good, and he's got good rotation there. He does not have a bicep swivel. He has a single hinged elbow. It does swivel at the elbow, and he does have pretty good bending at the elbow. He has a swivel at the glove cuff, and then he has the swivel at the wrist, and the hands do have hinges, so he's got up and down movement with the hands as well. There is a midsection joint, but again, it's covered by the costume, so it does restrict some of the movement, but you can rotate there at the midsection. And he has some down, he can kind of bend there. It kind of bends the, rubber pieces of the costume when you kind of bend them down. But, he does have that movement there, and he can move back a little bit as well. He then also has a swivel at the waist. And again, the belt can kind of move when you swivel it at the waist a little bit. So the belt can look a little off kilter when you start swiveling at the waist, but he does have that movement there. The legs are on those ball hinge joints, so he can do the splits well. He can get the leg forward nicely and out and back. And you want to be careful, again, because a lot of this costume is just kind of that soft rubber material, so you just want to be careful, that you don't rip or tear it or anything. I haven't had any issues with it, but just something that you want to probably be careful with when you're posing the figure around. He also has a swivel there at the where the joint is, basically at the upper thigh. Single hinged knee. He can bend his knee about that much. He's also got swivel at the knee, and then he's got the ankle pivot up and down movement there. And that's not really restricted because, again, that piece is separate on the boot. It can look a little funny, but he's got good movement there at the ankle. And then he's got two peg holes on the bottom of his feet. So the figure stands from his feet to the tip of his ears, basically comes in right at 7 inches. So obviously he's going to be shorter than your 6-inch Batman figures, but just for comparison, here he is next to Mattel's 6-inch Adam West figure. Two classic Batmans. And then here's another comparison with the recently released 6-inch Batman the Animated Series figure from DC Collectibles. Again, Michael Keaton Batman's definitely taller because it's 7-inch scale. The figure does fit in pretty nicely with DC Collectibles' regular 7-inch scale figures. So here he is next to the Greg Capullo 7-inch scale Batman. And you can see they're about the same height. Michael Keaton Batman's maybe a little bit taller with the longer ears. But again, for the most part, they're in scale. This is nice because you can, you know, take some Batman villains and put them up against your Michael Keaton Batman if you wanted. So here's the DC Collectibles Riddler figure. You know, it's obviously not Jim Carrey. Of course, it's not Val Kilmer either. But if you want him to go up against some villains, you know, your 7-inch DC Collectibles figure should fit nicely with this figure. Here he is next to that 5-inch Toy Biz figure that I told you that the packaging was kind of a tribute to. So just as a fun comparison. Here he is next to the 4-inch scale Michael Keaton Batman figure that was recently released by Mattel. And then here he is next to the Hot Toys 12-inch figure. And finally, NECA Toys 18-inch Michael Keaton figure. And the construction, again, on these figures are very similar. They've, you know, for the most part, from what I can tell, have just taken that 18-inch figure and shrunk it down to 7 inches for this figure. Then just for one more final fun comparison, here he is next to DC Collectibles 7-inch Arrow figure based on the Arrow character from the TV series. So you have your TV Green Arrow teaming up with your Michael Keaton Batman movie figure. Okay, so that's my review. Overall, I think this is a really nice figure. I really like the detail. The accessories are nice, and the articulation is decent. So, you know, if you've been waiting for a Michael Keaton movie figure based on Batman in this 7-inch / 6-inch scale, then I think this is definitely one that you're going to want to pick up. Now, one thing I just want to note real quick, this figure was first made available on the Warner Brothers eBay store a couple weeks ago. That's when we first heard about this figure. Now, that figure is going to ship with what's called a Diamond Luxe Blu-ray edition of the Batman movie, which, as I understand, is basically just a better quality, better HD sound, so on and so forth, version of the movie. The one that you get at Toys R Us is just going to come with the regular Blu-ray version of Batman that's been out for some time. So I just wanted to note that if you bought it off of the Warner Brothers eBay store, you're going to get a better quality version of the movie as opposed to those of you who buy it at Toys R Us. Most of you who buy this figure are probably buying it for the figure and not the Blu-ray, but I just wanted to note that. So anyway, this figure is starting to hit Toys R Us shelves now. So if you want to add him to your collection, start checking your stores now. The official sell date is supposed to be December 9th. So that's my review. I hope you enjoy it. Please leave a comment. Let us know what you think. If you're so inclined, please like the video. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. And until next time, I'll catch you later.